Okay guys, welcome back. I want to show you another look at the bottom field here. So we are back pretty much a full month later. This was the bottom where I showed you rotary hoeing. I showed you field cultivating down the foot tall or 2 foot tall foxtail. So what happened after I planted it, it was hot and it was dry. I stuck the seed in, came back. That was the second field in the rotary hoeing video. But it stayed hot and dry for about 6 or 7 days, I can't remember. But it was at least 5, maybe 6 days after that. And then it proceeded to get cool and wet. I was able to rotary hoe into one of those windows of weather there, and in effect now here we are pretty much a full month later, and I'm finally coming along with the first cultivation. You can see in the bottom here there's a spot coming up ahead there where the beans didn't drown out, but they were taken right to the point of drowning out. And so here I am with the first cultivation. I am using the Danish tine. I am using, so I have 2 starter cultivators. One cultivator is the one with the rolling shields, and one cultivator is set just a hair tighter, and it doesn't have rolling shields on it. There's a kind of a spot that attempted to drown out, but thankfully nothing drowned out on me. Anyway, so I've got a slightly more aggressive Danish tine. The row gaps are set about 1 inch closer on this cultivator. They're set at about 13 instead of 14 like the minimum aggressive one with the rolling shields. But the teeth setup is exactly the same. You have a duck foot on the front rank. You have a 4-inch sweep the next rank back. And then in the center of each row you have a 7-inch sweep. So the net effect of what I did on those planting decisions is that it was hot and dry. I was able to come along, rotary hoe it, and kill any foxtail that had survived. But now you can see, I'll stop here just a little bit. You can see the weed that survived. The weed that survived there were a couple big weeds that survived the field cultivation pass. But the weed that has survived and come and is running with the beans now, yeah, there's some little foxtail out there. But the predominant one is the morning glory. And on this fertile bottom ground, the morning glory, he's an opportunist, and he's tough, and he's always coming. And so that first rainfall event after the rotary hoeing is when that morning glory started coming. And so I was rotary hoeing at, I think, day 10. So there's about 18 to 21 days of growth on this morning glory. It is not vining out yet, but it is right to the point down there on the fertile ends where it wants to vine out. And so anyway, I sent my daughter over here to look at the field, and she drove over here on the 4-wheeler to make sure I would be able to run today. I'm going to look back, and that is what she saw. The field is entirely green back there on the high-dried sugar dirt. And so she said, oh, we've got a crisis. It's just horrible. The weeds are running right with the beans. But I did not panic. I waited another day or two to let this bottom ground dry out to where the dirt would flow good. And anyway, I knew that the weed that was coming was morning glory. I knew that it was not in the row because we had cleaned the rows real good when we pushed down the ridges. And I knew that morning glory, if you can get it before it finds out, it's not a threat at all to you. And so I am coming along. We're about at day 30, which is kind of unheard of for me. But I'm doing the first pass with the Danish tine with no rolling shields. I'm moving along at a pretty good clip. I vary my speed a little bit when we get into smaller beans here. But the net effect is that I can clean the beans up perfectly. I can move enough dirt that this field will in effect be a perfect field, and the only weed out here will be those couple escapes. There's some yellow nutsedge. There's some yellow nutsedge up ahead of me there. The only weeds will be the weeds that survive the first cultivation and are in the row with the soybeans. The ones that are between the rows are dying today. So anyway, another look at this field. This is a particular wet spot right here. So here's a slightly better view looking back into the sun of what my daughter saw. Up ahead there, it turns solid green. I don't know if the camera is picking it up. Let's see if we can zoom in a little bit. But as we get to the higher, drier ground, that is where the morning glory came. And so that's what my daughter saw and thought that it was a crisis. But years of experience has taught me that this is not a crisis at all, and that as long as the morning glory is not finding out, we will be able to clean the field up and make it look like that there. Okay guys, so I want to talk a little bit about the two factors that I control out here when I'm cultivating. So I told you I brought the cultivator without the rolling shields on it. So the reason I brought that cultivator is, first of all, I didn't need the rolling shields, but the more important reason was because that cultivator has the quick depth adjustment settings on the cultivator itself. And so when I'm working out here, I started this morning when the dew was on, and so at that point in time the cultivator was set a hair deeper. Now I was also in the tighter part of that bottom field at the time, but in order to get the residue to flow through, counterintuitively it helps to go just a little bit deeper so that you have more soil action to help the residue flow through. Anyway, the two factors that I control are speed and depth. And you have to be aware and able to adjust those two things. So now we're creeping up on noon. The dew is long gone. The soil has dried out. And we have got to the quote-quote sugar part of the bottom where I have super loose soil. And so first of all, in this part of the field, the beans were a hair thinner. And the reason for that was all of that green material that I worked down into the bottom. Some of that robbed moisture from the beans, and some of the beans did not come in this part of the field. Now, the beans in this part of the field are also taller and bigger, but the stand is a hair thinner. And so what I am doing in this part of the field is I have counterintuitively lifted up my row units. I have made my row units shallower. So I have made my row units shallower at the same time that I increased my speed. And what that is allowing me to do is throw dirt into the row very, very precisely. So just in general, the rules of thumb are, on the ground that I wanted to aerate, when I had a heavy dew, and when I was going slower, I could go deeper with the cultivator. Now that the soil has dried out, and the stand is a little bit thinner, i.e. there will be more weeds here, and you are in a part of the field where there is more weed pressure, I am increasing my speed, and I am shallowing up the row units. They move, they have the ability to go deep and completely bury the beans. And this, since I'm coming in here late with this pass, and the weeds do have a little jump, I have to push this cultivation. I have to be right at the point that I am burying the beans. And there is some death loss from burial out here, but you have to get the dirt in the row so that the soybeans at this point in their development have utter domination in the row. So those were the things that I'm thinking about, guys, as I'm cultivating here. And depth of the row units and speed. And those are the two factors you control and you need to manipulate to your advantage. Okay, guys, so one more point that I call a rookie mistake. This field has had 2 row crop passes over it. It had the pass when I planted, and it's had the pass when I rotary hoed. And so the soil where the tractor is driving, the tire tracks of the tractor, that ground is packed a little bit harder. So this is a rookie mistake that I used to make a lot, and I have learned to avoid it. And it is relevant to the rotary hoe as well. Your soil engagement, teeth or spiders, whatever runs in the tire track pattern has a higher rate of wear on it. And so with this cultivator and in these conditions, how I have dealt with that, I want to kill all the weeds where the tire tracks are running. And so I made one round last night and I saw that I was not getting the soil penetration that I desired in the road tracks. And so we put new shovels where the tire tracks run on those 2 row units. Okay guys, so I'm back at the workbench. I wanted to give you an up-close view of this, and I was trying to figure out how to show it to you. And so a piece of paper is probably the best explanation. So this line here represents your ground level, and these 2 represent your the actual shape of your shovel tips. And so as the tip wears, it will start to look like this. This here is the new tip. And how it engages the soil, it is cutting cleanly, so that will throw soil good and it will act appropriately. This tip here, after it gets worn, it will, in effect, it compacts the soil right where that tip does. But if the leading edge does not cut, the rest of the tooth will have a hard time cutting. It's the very same principle to the old timers and the plowshares, and how they would carry a hammer with them, a big hammer, and when they needed to quote quote dress their tips, they would impact that point of the plowshare real hard with a hammer. And when they did that, they would blunt the tip. And when you blunt the tip, if you hit it at a certain angle, like I am showing with this line right here, you will blunt the tip so that that round part is not engaging with the soil, and in effect you will have a new flat edge there from hitting in this direction with a hammer. So these 2 shovels came from the row, and if you look down on them, they don't look too bad. They look like, well, they're still shaped like teeth. But if you roll that over, you can see that horrible rounded edge there. And I grab the other tooth, and you can see that horrible rounded edge right there in the light. And so if the tip of the tooth or the leading edge of the tooth is not engaging the soil and in effect pulling the tooth down into the soil, the rest of the tooth will not work correctly. In addition, I am also running those 2 row units a ½ an inch deeper. Their depth setting on their quick change wheel is just 1 turn deeper than the other row units. The last thing that I did to those 2 row units was I put additional weight on them. So the row units, the 2 row units behind the tractor, each have a small tractor weight on them, a 75-pound tractor weight on them. And by doing those things, keeping those shovels sharp and a little bit extra depth and a little more weight, you are able to perfectly clean the 2 rows. Well, there's 4 rows here, but there's a row on each side of the tire track, and it's important to clean those. If you have dull shovels on, it will look like you stirred the dirt, and you will have stirred the dirt, but you will not have cut off the weeds. And so it's little tricks like that that you have to think about when you are row cultivating beans. You know, I like cultivating with my small, light Massey Ferguson tractors. People who are using heavier tractors, the row compaction will be even more of a concern for them. So, things to think about, guys, when you're cultivating crops.